Good day. My name is Steve Drzaik, and I'm with Nebraska Department of Revenue. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for having the department attend this year's conference. Today's topic, Department of Revenue's administrative and legislative updates for 2020. If you find that you have questions later on, please feel free to contact the department at 402-471-5729. That's 402-471-5729. Once you pull up our webpage, in the top right-hand corner, it'll say About, and if you hover over the top of that, you'll find a link where you can submit your email question. So let's go ahead and get started. So here's today's agenda. We're going to start off with business taxes and work our way down through the list. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the Department of Revenue's website. Last November, the department launched its new website, so it's coming up on its first anniversary. Hopefully, everybody's finding it user-friendly. The Department of Revenue's website has a lot of great information on there, and if you haven't taken time to explore it, I'd encourage you to do so. The one thing I'd like to talk about is where that red circle is, subscribe for notifications. The department does not mail out a lot of information any longer. We rely pretty heavily on sending out this information electronically. This is GovDelivery. It's a free online subscription service that allows you to pick and choose topics that pertain to you. Anytime there's any updates, any notices, we'll send you an email. It'll take you to a link. You click on the link, it'll tell you what those changes or updates are. One of the things that you may want to consider is letting your clients know when you meet with them about the Department of Revenue's website and specifically GovDelivery so they can stay on top of topics also. If you scroll down our page, you come to a section called Quick Links. We have it circled again, major legislative changes. If you need additional information on this year's bills or you want to go to past history of legislative bills, you click on this link and all that information is available there. Back in 2017, the Department of Revenue launched its online registration for business. This is the equivalent to the Nebraska tax application Form 20. It allows business owners to register online, and here's all the eligible tax programs. In the years past, when you submitted a paper application, it'd take about 10 days to 2 weeks to be processed, and then you receive the information in the mail. The greatest thing about this is once you've successfully submitted your application, you're going to receive all that account information immediately. You're going to receive the Nebraska identification number. If you apply for tax programs that are for NetFile system where you can electronically submit the returns, it's going to give you that unique 5-digit PIN number. It'll tell you the filing frequency. It'll also allow you to print off those certificates. I was talking to somebody from the department last week, and so far this year, we've received over 20,000 electronic applications. Now, we do receive still some paper applications, Nebraska Form 20, and generally, if you have to add additional tax programs to a tax account, you're required to fill out the Nebraska Form 20. If you're going to advise your clients to register online, let them know that there's a tutorial out there. It's about 3 minutes, help them ease through the process. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to actually complete the application itself. If you, the preparer, are going to go ahead and submit an application for your clients, let them know. Let them just remind them that you make an application and that they may receive some information from the department in the mail. That way they can take that information, put it with all their tax records, and when they come to visit you, all that information will be there. Now, this is another great addition to our NetFile system. Waste reduction and recycling fee. This is the Form 94. You can now file this form online and make payment online. So starting September 1, Nebraska locations that have taxable sales of $50,000 or more of tangible personal property are required to submit this return. Anytime a return is submitted electronically and paid electronically, it's fast, it's efficient, and it saves taxpayers money. So this is just another great addition to our NetFile programs. If you're thinking about contacting the department, one of the first things you should ask yourself is, do I have power of attorney on file with the department, the Nebraska Form 33? Generally, the department cannot provide account information to a third party unless we have a power of attorney, the Form 33 on file, or its equivalent. We cannot provide things like Nebraska identification numbers, the PIN numbers, filing frequency, or other account information. So when you meet with your clients this year, you may want to talk to them about the Nebraska Power of Attorney Form 33 and see if this is a good choice for them. As far as filing mandates, the business income tax filing mandate remains the same as last year. For tax years beginning on or after January 1 of 2019, all S corporations, LLCs, and partnerships with Nebraska source income must file a Nebraska return even if there's not tax due. When you're submitting the electronic business income tax return, you're going to need that Nebraska state ID number. So when you're scheduling your appointment with your clients, you may want to ask them if they have that state identification number, and if they don't, have them call the department to get it, or get that power of attorney Form 33 on file. When you're entering the Nebraska identification number, don't enter the prefix. So for an example, for corporate income tax, the prefix is 24-, you would not enter the 24-. If you're not sure if your client does have a business income tax ID number, but you know that they have a sales tax number or withholding tax number, for an example, you can use that number to electronically submit the business income tax return. Businesses that do not have an existing Nebraska ID number should apply using the online Nebraska tax application. As far as the e-file mandate for business income tax preparer, any paid preparer who prepared and filed more than 25 corporate, S corporation, or partnership income tax returns during the 2020 calendar year is mandated to file all returns electronically during the 2021 calendar year. These Nebraska returns would be the Form 1120N, the 1120SN, and the 1065N. The penalty is $100 for each return not e-filed. Now that's assessed towards the preparer, not your clients. If for some reason you're not able to electronically submit that return, you can submit a hardship waiver to the tax commissioner. I would encourage you to submit this before you file the return. These waivers will be evaluated and approved or denied on a case-by-case basis. The School Readiness Tax Credit Program, LB 889, has operative for taxable years beginning on or after January 1, 2017 and before January 1 of 2022. So this program right here offers a non-refundable credit and a refundable credit. So the general requirements for the income tax credits are, has a total allocation cap of $5 million per year. The provider or staff member will be required to submit an application to the Department of Revenue. Each application will require proper documentation from the accrediting agency, that'll be either the Health and Human Services or the Nebraska Board of Education, verifying the level or step achieved. The tax credits will be allocated in the order received. As far as the provider side, the credit to the provider is equal to the average monthly number of subsidied children who attend the provider's program multiplied by a dollar amount based on the quality scale rating of the eligible program. So this is a 5-step program. Steps 1 and 2, there's not a credit available. They start 3 through 5. When you're submitting that application, make sure that it's a current year application. Every year we get a few of them in where somebody will use an old form, an old application. We have to contact the person who made the application, give them the correct application. It just slows that whole process down. So it has to be a current year application. The provider application due date is within 2 months after the close of the year. Now there has been a change to the school readiness program, LB 266, with an operative January 1, 2020 date. It amends the School Readiness Tax Credit Act for both the non-refundable and the refundable income tax credits. In the years past, to obtain these credits, either had to be a corporation, an individual, or a fiduciary. The non-refundable credit is now available to pass-through entities. The definition of the eligible staff member has been expanded. For the refundable income tax credit includes a self-employed individual providing childcare and early childhood education for an eligible program for at least 6 months of the taxable year and is listed in the Nebraska Early Child Care Professional Record System and classified as provided in the Nebraska Revenue Statute. If for some reason you're not able to file that business income tax return on time, you can obtain an extension. To do so, you attach a copy of a timely filed extension to the Federal Form 7004 to the Nebraska return. Or you can attach a schedule listing the federal confirmation number and explanation that the request was not denied by the federal government. Or you can file a Nebraska extension, Form 7004M. Generally, Nebraska allows extension of the same number of months as allowed federally. Nebraska does allow a 7-month extension for corporate returns if a 7004M is timely filed. So if you're applying for a corporate extension federally, you may want to consider submitting a Nebraska extension 7004N to gain that additional month. Fiduciary returns will be allowed a 6-month extension by Nebraska. When you're filing that extension, make sure that you're attaching a copy of it to that business income tax return. Failing to attach the extension document to the Nebraska return may result in a late filing penalty. That extension only extends the date to file the return. So every year we seem to get calls on it where a taxpayer will call in, they received a notice from the department, and they'll tell us we filed an extension and we paid the return and filed the return by the due date. It has to be the original due date as far as taxes go. So remind your clients that if they are filing for an extension or you're filing for an extension for them, that they need to make sure that they're paying the tax by the original due date. Any tax not paid by the original due date is subject to interest. The Nebraska Circular EN will be updated to reflect Forms W4N and the federal Form 1099 NEC. There are no updates to the tables and brackets this year. As far as tips preparing Forms W2 and 1099, verify that that employee's Social Security number is correct. If it's not correct, a new tax and wage statement corrected will be needed to be sent to the department. If the employee's already filed their income tax return and it's not the correct information, it's going to slow that process down also. If the income is subject to Nebraska withholding, the employer or payer is required to list their Nebraska identification number on all federal forms, and here's the list of those forms. Be sure the Nebraska identification number is in the appropriate box on the Forms W2 and 1099. When entering the tax information, the Nebraska identification number do not include the 2-digit prefix. So for withholding tax, it's 21-. You would not enter the 21-. The federal employer ID number cannot be substituted for the Nebraska ID number. So we need 2 different ID numbers, one for the federal government and of course one for Nebraska. This has been in place since 2011. Any employer or payer who issues more than 50 wage and tax statements must e-file those statements with the Department of Revenue. Failure to do so would be $2 per statement, maxed out at $2,000. Nebraska Form W3N and related federal wage and tax statements must be filed by January 31st. If your payroll software does not support creating the proper file format for W-2s, we have available on our website the Nebraska W-2 file creator along with the instructions. It'll assist you in creating a text file to upload those Forms W-2s electronically. Going back to our website, back to the Quick Links section, I'd like to point out our sales tax rate finder. This is something else that you may want to go ahead and mention to your clients, whether they have sales or they're reporting use tax. By clicking on this link, you can enter an address where the sale took place, and it'll show you that state rate of 5.5%, if there's any municipality rates that would apply. And in Nebraska, there's 2 counties that have their own rates, if any of those rates would apply also. By clicking on this link, it'll also take you where you can receive the notices or see the notices that were sent out throughout the year, letting people who signed up for GovDelivery know what those rate changes are. So this is just another good reason to sign up for GovDelivery, to make sure that you're staying up to date as far as sales and use tax. We're done with the business side, and we're going to move into the individual income tax side now. Tax season is just right around the corner, and Nebraska will start accepting income tax returns the same date the federal government starts accepting income tax returns. Last year, the department had 93.4% of all returns were electronically submitted. So we're staying real close to where we want to be. That's just great. When you're completing the returns for your clients and they're due a refund, let them know that Nebraska has slowed that process down and to allow 30 days for an error-free return. The reason why we slowed that process down because it's tax fraud. We want to make sure that the people who deserve the refund are the ones that are actually getting the refund. When you print out the return and you give it to them, make sure you let them know that the Department of Revenue has on their website a refund tracker. They'll just go up to the top where it says individual, hover over that, and they'll see the link there that'll take them to this page. They're going to need some information, things like their social security number, their filing status, and their refund amount. And this will just guide them through the way to see when their return has been processed and when they can expect their direct deposit to their bank. If they're filing a paper return, please tell them allow 3 months or longer. Last year, the Department of Revenue broke away from the federal government's standard deductions. We have our own. So this is this year's 2020 and 2021 standard deductions. Taxpayers over the age of 65 and or blind, taxpayers using married filing jointly, married filing separately, or qualifying widow filing status at $13.50 per box checked. Taxpayers using single or head of household filing status at $16.50 per box checked. Here's the individual income tax brackets for 2020 and 2021. If you need to review these at a later date, these are available on the department's website under the estimated voucher booklet. The personal exemption credit, this is based on inflation, for 2020 is $140. For 2021, $142. There has been some high school district changes. These are available on our website under this year's tax booklet. This is something also new this year, LB 1107, the Nebraska Property Tax Incentive Act. It offers a refundable income tax credit equal to a percentage of real property taxes paid for school purposes, as defined. For tax year 2020, the credit was set at a level to provide $125 million in credits, increasing to $375 million for tax year 2024. For tax year 2025, the amount of the credit to be available is $375 million, plus the percentage increase in total assessed value of all real property in the state from the prior year, not to exceed 5%. Now, the department's working really, really hard to make sure that this program is going to be up and running for the 2020 season. The department has created a new form, PTC, Property Tax Credit, to be used by individuals and entities. The department will require anyone receiving the credit to file an income tax return, even if they have no liability or are a nonprofit. The department is developing a web application parcel lookup that taxpayers can use to assist in determining the amount of property taxes paid for school purposes. Taxpayers will need to know the parcel ID. That information can be obtained from the county in which the property is located. So here's the new form. One of the things that you may want to consider when you're looking at purchasing your software that'll go ahead and support this credit. Individual income tax credit for volunteer emergency responders, LB 886. So this program started in January 1 of 2017. It offers a refundable income tax credit equal to $250. It's available to qualified active members or volunteers, emergency responders, rescue squad members, and firefighters. We need to have the certification list from the administrator no later than February 15th. Copies may be sent to the Department of Revenue electronically or by mail. Now, there's approximately 560 first responder departments in the state of Nebraska. Last year, only 260 of those departments took credit. So as you meet with your clients and you know that they're a first responder, a volunteer, you may want to mention this to them, and they can check with their city administrator to see if they are available for this credit also. This is something that actually passed last year in 2019 and has an operative date of January 1. Tax credit for purchase of a residence in an extremely blighted area. For taxable years beginning or deemed to begin on or after January 1 of 2020 and before January 1 of 2026, LB 86 provides a $5,000 non-refundable income tax credit for the purchase of a residence in an extremely blighted area. The credit will be available to the individual purchasing the residence upon meeting the following requirements. So there's 3 of them. The residence is located in an extremely blighted area. It is the individual's primary residence, and the individual did not purchase the residence from a family member of the individual or an individual spouse. The department has created a new form, and here's the form. It's the form 1040N-EB. I spoke earlier about the school readiness credit, and the first one was for the non-refundable credit, and here's the general requirements. So I'm just going to go ahead and bypass this and also bypass the next slide, which shows the changes because of LB 266. Applies to both of them, the non-refundable and the refundable. So the requirements for the refundable are for eligible staff members. It's available to staff members who are both employed with an eligible program for at least 6 months during the taxable year and are classified in the Nebraska Early Childhood Professional Record System. The credit, as I mentioned before, is a refundable income tax credit. When submitting that application, make sure you're using, of course, the current application. The eligible staff members receive a credit equal to, and there's 4 levels, so it's whatever which one they have achieved. The staff member application due date is March 1 of 2021. The e-file requirement, once again, remains the same. There's no change to the tax preparer individual income tax e-file requirement. This applies to all tax preparers who file 25 or more Nebraska individual income tax returns during the prior calendar year. All individual income tax returns that they are paid to prepare during the calendar year 2020 must be e-filed. So this is for paid preparers. So if you're a volunteer, it wouldn't apply to those. The penalty is $100 for each return not e-filed. Once again, that's assessed towards the preparer, not the client. When preparing individual income tax returns, verify each of the forms, the W-2s and 1099 statements, to ensure completeness and accuracy. If the Nebraska employer ID number is blank and has Nebraska withholding, a corrected form must be obtained. So that's going to take extra steps as far as getting that corrected tax and wage statement to the department. And once again, it could cause a little bit of hardship for the employee if they submitted it with their individual income tax return. Verify that that employee's Social Security number is correct on each form, W-2 and 1099 statement. Check the year on those tax statements. So just ensuring that the tax records that you're entering are for that current year. Ensuring these documents are provided at the time of original filing will ensure timely processing of the return. So we're going to need the Federal Form 1040 to verify Social Security income included in federal AGI, earned income credit. Nebraska tax is limited to the federal liability. The Forms 2441N And the federal form 2441 must be submitted to allow credits for the refundable and or non-refundable child care credit. If your client has income in another state, we're going to need to see copies of that other state's return. We'll give credit that's properly paid to another state, but they need to be submitted to Nebraska along with the income tax return so we can verify it. The K-1N is needed to allow income tax withholding. Some other examples of documentation that's going to be required. We already mentioned the W-2s and 1099s, but we also need the Railroad Retirement Board issued forms, the Schedule K-1N, the Form 1041N, 1065N, and 1120SN. The Nebraska Child and Dependent Care Expenses, Form 2441N, and the Nebraska Refund for Deceased Taxpayers, Form 1310N, and supporting documentation as indicated on the form. Some additional documentation would be for the Nebraska Incentives Credit Computation, the Form 3800N, and all supporting worksheets and schedules. The Form 3800N may be e-filed if your software supports it. If your software supports it, all supporting documentation must be sent as a PDF attachment, or it will be requested later during processing. When processing these are 100% reviewed, so it can take 6 weeks or more. The NOL worksheet. If you do not have a federal NOL, you cannot have a Nebraska NOL under Nebraska law. For more information on that, you can look at the worksheet instructions on the back of the NOL or Nebraska Revenue Statute for more information. If this would apply, the Statement of Nebraska Financial Institution Tax Credit, Form NFC. When filing income tax credit, there's some other steps that you can actually take to help make sure that everything goes smoothly. Verify estimated payments and payment dates. Have your clients bring in their banking statements. Or if they electronically submitted the returns or payments, they'll go ahead and bring in that confirmation page. When you're looking at the estimates, make sure that they are applied to the current year and they are also applied to the correct Social Security number. And the reason why I mentioned that is sometimes spouses will go ahead and make that estimated payment and they won't use the prime Social Security number. They'll use their Social Security number. Now those funds are in an account with the wrong Social Security number. It's an easy fix. You just send in a letter to the department, either you can fax it or mail it in, telling us where the funds went and where you want them to go to. College Savings Nest Statement shows the owner's contribution for the year claimed. Verify that that bank information is correct. If you're not sure or your client's not sure, have them check with the bank. Don't use that information that's on a deposit slip or debit card information. We want to make sure that the proper information is being entered on the return. That way, when we go ahead to direct deposit those refunds, they get to the taxpayers quickly. Verify that that address is current. If the return has been filed, a Nebraska Form 22A will be needed to file and update the address. So when you're meeting with your clients, and you just may want to mention to them that will you be moving through this next year? And if they say yes, let them know. That way, if we have any type of correspondence, it'll get to them. If for some reason the banking information wasn't corrected on electronically filed return or paper filed return, once we make that deposit, it'll be rejected from the bank. The bank will send it back to us. We'll mail out a warrant check. If your clients have moved, the U.S. Postal Service will not forward that warrant check, and it'll come back to the Department of Revenue. Now, we do have avenues to get that to the taxpayer, but once again, it just slows that process down. If your client finds that they have a balance due on their individual income tax return, let them know that they should make payments all the way up to the due date if they can. By making those payments towards their account, they're going to be reducing the penalty, and they'll also reduce the interest that starts after that due date. Interest will accrue on any unpaid tax until it's paid in full. If the taxpayer is unable to pay the entire balance by the due date, we do offer some payment options. One of them is pay by credit card. You can go to our website, up where it says individuals. You hover over the top of that. There's a link there that'll say make payment only. And one of them would be to make a payment online using official payments. If they can pay the entire amount within 90 days, there's no forms to submit to the department. They don't even need to contact the department. They just need to make 4 equal payments. The first payment right away, then every 30 days thereafter, an additional payment. These payments can be made electronically, by check, or by money order. If your client finds that they owe a balance and they're not able to pay within 90 days, they still have some options with the department. They can request electronically an online payment plan. Payments must be made electronic funds transfer, EFT. If the arrangement's approved, payments will automatically be withdrawn from the bank account as the taxpayer has scheduled. If your clients have any questions, please feel free to have them contact taxpayer assistance. Some other helpful hints. As I mentioned before, payments can be made prior to the return being submitted. If they're mailing a payment in, make sure that they're using the proper form, a payment voucher, or if they're going to put it on a piece of paper, they include things like their name, their social security number, and what tax year it goes to. And make sure it's the prime social security number. If they have additional questions, once again, they can contact taxpayer assistance. If they have a payment plan with the department, no further collection action will be taken. Discuss ways to avoid this in the future. Maybe they need to change their withholding on the W-4M, or maybe they need to make or increase estimated income tax payments. We're going to talk about use tax now. And this is for Nebraska individual use tax, not business use tax. Once again, individuals will be able to report their use tax on their 1040-N. It'll be on line 42 this year. If the taxpayer needs to report use tax to multiple local jurisdictions, they'll have to use the Nebraska Form 3, which is available on our website. If the taxpayer has credit that's been properly paid to another state and still needs to remit some use tax, they'll use the Nebraska Form 2. As far as businesses, they will report their use tax either on the Nebraska Sales and Use Tax Form 10 or the Nebraska Use Tax Return Form 2. All businesses that hold a Nebraska Sales and Use Tax permit must use the Nebraska Sales and Use Tax Return Form 10. The nice thing about the Sales and Use Tax Return is you're electronically able to report the use tax and remit the use tax. We're done with the income tax side, and now we're going to move into the legislative changes. There has been a change provision relating to the taxation of military retirement benefits. This is LB 153, with an operative date January 1 of 2022. LB 153 replaces the current election to exclude a portion of military retirement income from federal adjusted gross income with an exclusion of 50% of all military retirement income. Providing an income tax exemption for Siegel AmeriCorps Education Awards. This is LB 477 with an operative date of January 1 of 2021. LB 477 allows taxpayers to reduce a taxpayer's federal adjusted gross income by amounts received from the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award, beginning with tax years on or after January 1 of 2020. There is a change for provisions regarding the Nebraska Educational Savings Plan Trust, NEST. LB 1042 provides a deduction from federal adjusted gross income equal to the amount of any contribution made by the individual's employer into a Nebraska Education Savings Trust account to the extent included in the income of the employee. The deduction is limited to $5,000 for married filing separate returns and $10,000 for any other return. The deduction is available for tax years beginning on or after January 1 of 2021. As far as tax incentives, there's a change procedures for tax credits under the Nebraska Job Creation and Main Street Revitalization Act, LB 310. More information will be coming out on this. It'll be available on our website. It'd be a good time to sign up for GovDelivery if you are interested in this information, so you can be notified when it is added to our website. The Adopt the Imagine Nebraska Act, this is actually taking place of the Nebraska Advantage Act. And once again, more information will be available in the future from our website. far as sales and use tax, change access to sales and use tax information for municipalities. This is LB 236. It allows cities with an agreement in place under the Nebraska Advantage Transformational Tourism Act to obtain sales tax information through a secure electronic means. Change sales tax provisions relating to an electrical or street lighting facilities, LB 923, and this is directed towards cooperatives or electric membership associations. For property tax, or property assessment, nameplate capacity tax hasn't changed, LB 76, with an operative date of January 1 of 2021. The nameplate capacity of a renewable energy generation facility is to be determined based on that facility's alternating current capacity instead of its nameplate capacity. Business incentives, LB 1107, the Imagine Nebraska Act provides for personal property tax exemption for specific personal property located at a qualified business project. So this is going to be similar to Nebraska Advantage Act, LB 312. And we're moving into our last section for revenue rulings, GIL letters, and information guides. We have a couple revenue rulings this year. One was for all Nebraska taxes, signature requirements. So this would be block signatures and digital signatures. The interest rate assessed on state taxes is going to change January 1 of 2021. It's going to be reduced. It starts at 5%. It's going to be reduced after the first year to 3%. There's a couple general information letters for tax incentives. One of them was for the treatment of alternative employment arrangements due to COVID-19 national emergency for purposes of calculating employment levels under the Nebraska Advantage Act. The other GIL for incentives was the effect on COVID-19 national emergency of recapture under the Nebraska Advantage Act. Also available on our website is our updated information guides for incomes, sales, and miscellaneous. And here's a list of those updated information guides. I'll just keep here for a second. These are available also on our website, and this is something also when you meet with your clients, you may want to let them know about it also. We had updated information guides for motor fuels, and updated information guides for property assessment. This concludes the 2020 legislative updates and legislation. I truly appreciate speaking at your conference today. Once again, if you have questions, please feel free to contact Taxpayer Assistance or email your question in. I truly hope you have a successful tax filing season. Once again, thank you.